Last week, the latest gaming disaster was unleashed upon the world. A rather out-of-left-field Lord of the Rings tie-in, Gollum, a game so barely functional that simply booting it up can cause a crash. And when you finally manage to boot it up, you'll notice that the titular character missed the makeup chair. Like, I know this was a render, but this Gollum has been through more filters than an e-thought. Now, the game isn't offensively bad, but it certainly is boring, uninspired, mediocre plate filler, meant for the cavernous minds of brand slaves with way too much money. Much like its blockbuster contemporary The Avengers, this game brings nothing to the table but a painful retrotting of a weather-worn formula. But unlike that game, Gollum had the decency to release as a single-player experience, instead of a live service game. That way little Timmy can still be disappointed when his grandma goes into the last GameStop in America and picks this game up, instead of the Ice Spice Fortnite amiibo. Gollum is nothing but a cycle of fetch quests and stealth sections interspersed with particularly rigid cutscene. Considering that we're in 2023, it's a wonder that this developer got their hands on this AAA franchise. Now, the developers have issued an apology on Twitter, because why not attempt to market your shit game while apologizing for said shit game? And this is actually what I wanted to dive into, this sinister idea that developers and publishers have tricked themselves into in the age of live service, day one patches, and endless DLC and update cycles. For all Gollum's faults, it was merely following in the footsteps of the greats, such as Forspoken, Cyberpunk 2077. The mantra in modern media is fix it in post, and nowhere is this mentality more prevalent and painful than in gaming. In the case of Cyberpunk, this is a game that was restarted at least twice over its 7-year development cycle. Despite massive technological increases, it ran about as well as Lizzo at the Santa Anita Handicap. Absolutely no time was spent optimizing the game, despite CD Projekt's decision to release the game on old-gen consoles. Listen, no one told you to shoot yourself in the foot, CD Projekt, and not even the robotic feet you replaced them with could outrun the massive consumer and market repercussions of that disaster. We're talking CD Projekt Red losing hundreds of millions of dollars and losing the faith of their home country's government. Still, the game sold well enough, and the classic gamer cope of works on my machine shielded them from the true market disaster. CD Projekt will return with Witcher 4 and perhaps a Cyberpunk 2 in the future, and I'm sure gamers will end up buying it as well. But will you? Let me know in the comments below. However, one company that has not been able to shield itself from criticism is Square Enix, and their latest game Forspoken was an unmitigated disaster. The ugly yet proud attempt by Squeenix's senior citizen managerial staff to appeal to the West by copying all of the terribly written ironic comedies that nobody watches on Netflix. In this case, you can put some of the blame on the Berkeley postgrads who sold them down the woke river, as many Japanese studios have relocated their bases to California. But that doesn't excuse a game that looks like this.
I just moved shit with my mind.
I just keep hearing I.
Needing one of Elon Musk's Twitter servers to run at 30 frames. The lack of polish is astounding from such a supposedly professional development team. I know we started with Gollum, but Daedalic Entertainment was actually a small development team, who mostly made point-and-click titles before this game. How they got their hands on Lord of the Rings, I honestly have no clue. I just have to put it up to mismanagement of that franchise in general. But Forspoken really toasts my buns because Square Enix used to be gaming royalty, and now they're like a band of marauders trying to rob people with half-baked games and NFTs. My disappointment with them goes back as far as Kingdom Hearts 3, though I know people have been disappointed with them for a decade plus at this point. But that's not nearly as egregious as the story of Overwatch 2.
I just moved shit with my freaking mind!
Now, Overwatch 2 was first announced at BlizzCon 2019, and it was supposed to bring a fully fleshed out story mode to the game, with both event-style campaigns and a continuous campaign with heroes that you could level up and actually choose the powers of. They actually showed quite a bit of this over the years, again at BlizzCon 2021, and they even showed official mission gameplay with day-night cycle and parts of the maps that had never been seen before. The game was eventually launched in fall of 2022, and of course, it came without the PvE portion. Fast forward to May of 2023, and Blizzard officially announced that they will not be doing the campaign missions. PvE is exclusively small raids tied to the Battle Pass, which makes it even worse than the old archive system. Now, casuals are disappointed because no PvE, grinders are disappointed because new characters and skins require real money, and Blizzard fucked themselves because now there's no story mode for people to pay for XP boosts. It's important to note that the PvE announcement came with the drama of Blitz Chung, an Overwatch League player getting banned for criticizing Hong Kong's censorship back in 2019. The game had been on the downturn for quite a while, and during the development of Overwatch 2, their studio head Jeff Kaplan left. And as many problems as Jeff Kaplan had, at least there was a sense of direction with the game. Overwatch 2 was also a sneaky attempt by them to try and save their esports. This is because they followed the Call of Duty League franchise model with $20 million buy-ins and leasing a physical venue to host major tournaments requiring teams of players, production staff, management, security, and all kinds of logistics that esports frankly cannot afford. Overwatch 2 was ultimately a desperate attempt by Activision Blizzard to capture a small amount of the relevancy they had lost since the initial release. By relaunching the original game but with blackjack and hookers, actually there was one less hooker than before, since the game had been reformatted as a 5v5. This relates to the general brain drain of the AAA gaming industry, where a lot of the veteran developers are leaving to develop technology or indie games. Blizzard was notorious for underpaying their staff and middle management bloat. There was many calls last year for unionization by their employees. I already mentioned the Avengers, but I want to go deeper into that game. Another Squeenix joint. This is a game that wanted to charge people $60 for the cover, and then charge you for overpriced skins in the cash shop. No unlockables here, ladies and gentlemen. Though eventually they did end up giving most of the stuff away when the game died. This game also released more than a year after Endgame. Like, who the hell was gonna care to play this Destiny knockoff at this point? Actually, Destiny is too good a game. I gotta call this an Anthem knockoff. Maybe if it was a true single player experience, but nope. The shitty live service model means that come September, you won't even be able to purchase this game anymore, even if you were curious. When I was a kid, every multiplayer game was player hosted, or at the least had the option to have player-hosted servers. It's like we went back to the future, but instead of hoverboards and talent shows, we're all tied to the train tracks, about to be run over by a train full of shitty games. We of course have to talk about Halo Infinite, a game that was mechanically good, but completely failed when it came to performance on launch, and the update cycle took far too long to maintain a casual player base. Now 343 has announced that they won't be doing any DLC for the story mode, and their next project, Tatanka, will be developed in Unreal Engine, as the Slipspace engine that they developed specifically for Halo Infinite is proving too hard to use. To quote Halopedia, the Slipspace engine has enabled Halo Infinite to evolve as a platform with new content, mechanics, and stories being added regularly. It's literally the exact opposite of that in reality. Xbox head Phil Spencer came out a couple weeks ago and said that good games will not sell more Xboxes, and I can't disagree more. I think games are what sell. Aren't games supposed to be the point of video games? There are endless examples of games releasing half-baked with ready-made apologies day one. And unfortunately for the poor suckers who buy these feature-incomplete train wrecks, the only real solution is to do the exact opposite of what they've been doing. You can't give your money to these game developers. You have to remember the publishers' names, because ultimately, it is the publishers who dictate what gets set out on the table. In any case, be sure to support your favorite streamers. Hopefully that's me, because I feel like we do an important public service by exposing shitty games and promoting good games. So be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe check out one of these videos next to me about some other games that I've played before. Comment down below what your least favorite game of the past 5 years has been. I really want to hear what you have to say about the shitty state of gaming, because let's be real, though games may look better than they ever have been, we're getting some of the laziest slop that's ever been produced.